The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the McGrath Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Star Sport podcast. I'm your host Matthew Hardy. I'm joined today as always by our Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose Credit Union, choose local, choose community. Now, on today's show, we will be joined later on by Cork football manager John Cleary as his side prepare for their National Football League Division 2 campaign. But first of all, Kieran, going away from the inter-county scene for a bit and onto the club scene, the 2026 draws for the Cork Championship were made on Tuesday evening, and it brought up a lot of interesting ties, I would say. The Premier Senior Football Championship draw in particular, you look at Group 3 there, you have Castlehaven and Clonakilty clashing in the West Cork derby, but adding you have Ballincollig and Knocknagree in that group as well. It is the group of death there. Newcestown are in a group with Nemo Rangers, hoping to gain revenge for their county semi-final loss in 2025. St Michael's and Valley Rovers make up the numbers in that group, and the other group is St Finbarrs, Carrigaline, Mallow and Douglas. The Group 3 group there, Doug, Kieran, Castlehaven, Clonakilty, Ballincollig, Knocknagree. Like, you couldn't have asked for a tougher group for the two West Cork sides there.
It is, yeah. That is kind of every year we do get this group of death, and I think Group 3 has to be it in the Premier Senior Football Championship for next year. So what you've Castlehaven, who are the champions in 23 and 24. You've Ballincollig, who were semi-finalists this past season. Knocknagree are coming up out of Senior A's champions, and they'll have serious momentum behind them. Then also you've a Clonakilty team that's been knocking at the door these last couple of years. We're in the Division 1 Football League final last season. Only go back a couple of years, they were in the county final themselves. And I think Clonakilty are a team that feel that they can be one of those sides that can break the stranglehold of the top three. So that really is a very tough group. If you're looking at the other groups, like the Bars, you'd have to fancy them coming out of Group 1. They're in Carrigaline, Mallow and Douglas. Looking at Group 2, you've Newcestown, Nemo, Michaels and Valleys kind of right now, and I know a lot can change. You'd say Nemo and Newcestown look the two more likely teams to come out of there, even though Valleys and Michaels will have something to say about that. But it's that Group 3 match with like Haven, Ballincollig, Knocknagree, Clonakilty. It just, every game there is going to be crucial. I don't know, that's almost a cliche, but it really will, because there's little to choose between them. Castlehaven would be hell-bent and trying to reclaim their crown. Clonakilty want to make an impact. Like I said, Knocknagree have that momentum. Ballincollig, we know they've been thereabouts for the last couple of years as well. So it's just a really tough group, And even looking at the Clonhaven for a second, it's the fourth time in 5 years that we've had these two West Cork teams in the same group. Haven have won every one of those games, 22, 23 and 24. They didn't meet this past season. So history favours Castlehaven. Castlehaven have a serious record in the group stage as well. They've only dropped a handful of points, I think, over the last 5 seasons. So yeah, I know it's a way away next summer, but already it'll be something to look forward to when the calendar turns.
It definitely will be, and yeah, that Group 3 is very, very appetising indeed. Every one of those sides could maybe fancy their chances at a run in the knockout stage. Like, obviously you mentioned Castlehaven, they're doing so well over the last few years. Clon have that potential, Knocknagree have that momentum, and Ballincollig are just very, very consistent. So it is going to be a very interesting group in that championship. Another West Cork derby is happening in the Senior A Football Championship, where O'Donovan and Rossa clashed with Carbery Rangers. Carbery Rangers going down to the Senior A grade. They'll be joined in Group 2 by Kilnamatra and Newmarket. Dawnies, meanwhile, are in Group 1. They're with Bailoff and Gearig, Kanturk and New Boys, Bullock. And then Group 3, it's Bishopstown, Arrow, Clonakilty Rovers and Kilshannig. That West Cork derby there, Kieran, Carbery Rangers and O'Donovan Rossa, they're not too far away either. So it does have the potential to have fireworks in that game. And throwing Kilmatra, who reached the final of this competition last year, you have a very interesting group there.
You have, yeah. I always think, Matthew, the Senior A Football Championship is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive. We've spoken before about, let's say, Premier Senior for a second. You have those top three, and then you've the other ones. You've other couple of clubs coming out of the chasing pack trying to break in there. But when it comes to the Senior A Football Championship, there's always it's always hard to pick a winner. And you're looking at Group 2 now. You've Carbery Rangers just out of Premier Senior, the first time out of the top grade in I think in 20 years or more. Kilmatra, finalist this year at Senior A Football, then you've O'Donovan Rossa and Newmarket. So it's a really interesting group. You'll be looking at Ross and Kilmatra right now, but I know Skib will have something to say about that. But it's just kind of that Skib and Ross Carbery game, like you said, not too far apart at all. We're talking about 15-20 minutes in the car, if that. I know myself from that drive from the Southern Star HQ and Skib over to the Celtic Rosswood Hill and Ross Carbery when you go for the West Cork Sports Star Awards. It's just a 20-minute drive, so they're two clubs who are very close in geography, and they'll be very close in terms of the grade next year. So that's a game to look forward to. And even Donny's group, in with Ballingeary, Kanturk and Bullock. Donny's, I think, were really disappointed this year not to come out of the group, because over the last couple of years in the Senior A Football Championship, they got to the final. They've been in the knockout stages nearly season after season, but this past year didn't go too well for them. There was a change of management there as well, with Niall Hurley taking over from Declan Dwyer, and a new management team gone in there. So Donny's will be hoping for the kind of that fresh start to kind of spark them, to get them going again. So it's kind of a tough draws for the West Cork teams. But like I said, at this stage, it's impossible to pick a winner in the Senior A Football match, Joe.
It is. It's a very, very competitive championship indeed, and looking forward to when that championship kicks off at the end of July next year. Looking at the Premier Intermediate Football Championship, Bantry Blues are involved in this, and geez, Bantry got a very tough group as well. They have Glanmire, Eve Lera and Rock Chapel in their group in Group 1. You have Castlehaven Bear there as well. They've Drew Macroom, Ahada and Kishgame, and then Nave Vaughan Fermoy, Nemo Rangers, second team in Ballynora are in Group 3. Folks in Bantry for a sec here, and that is a difficult group, and they failed to get out of the group last year, probably disappointingly so, considering they were regulars in the knockout stages. But facing Eve Lera, who just fell short at Bullock in the Premier Intermediate Football Championship final, Glanmire, who reached the knockout stages and won the Intermediate A a few years ago, that is a very tough draw there for Bantry, and it is going to be very difficult to see how they get out of this. Could there be a situation where Bantry failed to get out of the group for the second year running?
Hopefully not, is my kind of short answer to that. Hopefully Bantry can regroup in 2026 and go again. Like, they were almost in the end, kind of, if memory serves me correctly, Matthew, they were almost unlucky not to get out of the group stage. It was a very tight group they're in. But you're looking at that group, like Ivlay or there, like they'll be thereabouts next year. They really will. Like, they've been on a really serious run over these last couple of years. Like you said, Glanmire, former Intermediate A champions. But then I look at Bantry and the players that they can call on, and hopefully the injury gods are kind to Bantry, because go back a few years ago, Bantry were thereabouts for a couple of seasons in a row, county finalists, just knocking at the door. They never took that next step. So we know the caliber is there, we know the experience is there. It's just hoping that they can all come together as such, And I'm even looking down now at Group 2 for a second. We've Castletown Bear in there, and you'll be hoping too that Castletown Bear can. They're supposed to the top ranked Bear football team. They're in now with Kishgame and Macroom, and that's another tough group, Kind of even though Macroom survived the relegation playoff this year, kind of they can still be kind of tough competitors, and ahead of Kishgame in there. So again, tough draws in there, but Bantry definitely not without hope.
Yeah, it is going to be very interesting to see the Premier Intermediate Football Championship next year, and in the Intermediate A Football Championship. This was always going to be an interesting draw on this neck of the woods, obviously, because there was 4 West Cork teams in Adrigole, Bandon, Gabriel Rangers and Island Rovers. Two of them obviously had to end up in the same group at least, and that has happened with Bandon and Kilbrittain being in the same group, and Carbery and Kildare making up Group 3 there. In Group 2, we have Carbery Rangers, Mitchelstown, St. Finbarr's second team, and Drumtariff. So Mitchelstown and Gabriel's played last year. Gabriel's won that game. They actually beat Mitchelstown the last 2 seasons, so they have a very good record against them. Island Rovers lost the final this year to Ballynor. They faced Kilmurray, Buttevant, and Glanworth in Group 1. I suppose what jumps off the page there, Kieran, Bandon against Andregold. Probably, I think that's going to be the first round as well. So very interesting tie there.
It is, yeah, like Bandon obviously dropping down from Premier Intermediate. Andregold have been kind of serial contenders at Intermediate 8 over the last couple of years. Probably disappointed that they haven't been able to take that next step and get beyond the semi-final into final. And that's what they'll be targeting. Like you said there, Matthew, Bandon Andregold in the first game is huge, because we know how important the first game is in these group stages. It sets the tone for what's to come. Like, get a win, you're up and running; lose, you're on the back foot. So that Bandon Andregold game will be huge. Just looking at Island Rovers for a second, defeated finalists this year. But I suppose it's always the disappointing aspect of being a defeated finalist. Like, you're so close to getting that win, to getting that promotion that you're chasing. And look at Ireland; they went to that replay against Ballynora and heartbreak right at the death. But Ireland are right back at the start line again for 2026, and they're in with Kilmurray, who again, if memory serves me correctly, they're in the same group the season just gone, and that game finished a draw. So Ireland will be hoping just to build on what they achieved this past season. They kind of found their form again. They got back to winning ways, so they look to hopefully mount a challenge. And then Carbery Rangers are another West Cork team who've been thereabouts in Intermediate A over the last couple of years. So Mitchelstown, tough draw. Then you've the Bars and you've Drumtariff in there as well. So you'd have to say, Matthew, of all the grades, and I know we've Castlehaven up in Premier Senior, you're looking at Intermediate A, and this is probably where a West Cork winner looks more realistic. I don't think it's too outlandish to say that, is it?
It isn't at all, no, to be honest with you. Like the same thing could have been said probably in the knockout stage this year with Gabriel's, Island, Andregold. I would have thought any of those would go on and win it. But obviously then Ballynor kind of burst the bubble by beating Island and Gabriel's on their way to winning it. So like, you never know with these competitions. I suppose the tough teams there are probably Mitchelstown. They have good individual, I would say, quality. Colomani, Sean Walsh, all them, but at the same time they can't seem to put it together. Interesting enough, in Island's group, as well as Kilmurray, they've Buttevant. They were the last two Premier Junior football champions as well. So two of those clubs have a lot of momentum, it's fair to say as well. So I would say, yeah, I think one of them for the West Cork region will probably win this Intermediate A competition. But if one of them four doesn't win it, I think Kilmurray are probably the team to probably stop them in terms of their development and things like that. But we'll have to see. In the Premier Junior grade, the first year up at there for Kilmacabea, they'll be obviously celebrating in Lep as of now. But as 2026 goes on, they have to focus on Group 3, where they face Cannavee, St. Nick's and the Piershig. Difficult enough group, Kieran. Cannavee, obviously thereabouts in the Premier Junior over the last few seasons. Nick's were the finalists, losing the Buttevant last season. And obviously the Piershig have had a bit of a downward spiral over the last few years. Like, I can remember the Piershig being talked about as a senior club in Cork football circles. So they've had such a fall from grace there. But I'm sure it's going to be an exciting adventure maybe for Kilmacabea, but it is a tough group.
Yeah, there's no getting away. It's a tough draw for Kilmacabea. Cannavee and Nick's were actually in the same group as well last year, and like you said there, Matthew, Cannavee got through to the semi-final. They were beaten by Buttevant. Nick's got through to the county final. They were beaten by Buttevant. So straight away, that shows the calibre of team that Kilmacabea are up against. The last season's finalists and last season's semi-finalists, and through in the Piercing as well. But I think for Kilmacabea, kind of the first year up, they'll want to, I suppose, they'll want to find their feet, but they'll also hope that momentum will take them on some bit as well. So that first game, I presume, is against the Piercing. If Kilmacabea can get a win there, that can really set them up. And we've spoken at length about this Kilmacabea team on the podcast over the last couple of weeks, following their journey through Carbery and then obviously winning the County Junior A. Like, there are quality players in this Kilmacabea team. Okay, this draw could have been a little bit kinder to them, but that's not to say that Kilmacabea, again, with that momentum and the confidence and that self-belief. And I suppose you got to remember too that Kilmacabea will be playing Division 6 County League football next year, so that's going to stand to them as well. So you can see if Kilmackie can take that next step and keep improving. What's not to say that they can't put it up to the Kennevies and the St. Nick's, like you said, who've been thereabouts these last couple of years. But I think for Kilmackie, the fact that they were even in this draw, kind of that they could tune in on Tuesday or watch online, watch the county championship draw, because they've been waiting to be involved at this stage of the championship for so many years. They're here now. Now they know as well what 2026 championship will look like, and they can start to plan accordingly. But I think they need to enjoy these couple of weeks first, and then thoughts will turn to 2026. But I wouldn't discount Kilmackie.
No, not at all. No, they are a very good side and they deserve to be where they are in the county championship, in fairness. And best luck to Kilmackie for next season. There was a few West Cork hurling draws as well, hurling teams in the county draws. Starting off, I suppose, in the Premier Senior Hurling Championship, Newstown, they got a favourable enough draw, I would say, in the football, facing St. Michael's, Valley Rovers. Okay, Nemour, the anomaly there. But in the hurling, I would say it's the opposite. Kieran, Middleton, who have reached the 3 of the last 5 county finals. St. Finbarrs, who only lost by a point to the county champion Sarsfields, and Bright Rovers, who won the Senior A Championship and are on a bit of momentum themselves. That's in Group 3. That's a very difficult group for Newcestown. I suppose in the football, they got a favourable enough draw, as I mentioned, but not that certainly isn't the same thing you could say about the hurling.
No, 100%. Kind of, I think Cammy Christen, Group 3, the group of death, Matthew, would that be fair to say? Like you said, Middleton, the Bars, Bright Rovers, momentum behind them. It's going to be tough ask for Newcestown, but then you can just never discount them. You really can't, kind of what Newcestown have done over the last couple of years in terms of being a Premier Senior club, both hurling and football, is just hugely impressive, because they're kind of leaning on the same pool of players for when it comes to the championship. And Newcestown, they always deliver, they always do. We saw the football the footballers went a bit further, obviously, than the hurlers last year, but the hurlers have had success over the last couple of years too. Not too long ago that the hurlers were Senior A champions, and obviously the footballers as well. So you could never discount Newcestown, but definitely it's a tough draw, and especially kind of the only Carbery club as well in the Premier Senior Hurling Championship, and we've seen obviously the standard of Cork hurling now, and the Stars and the Middleton and all these teams. So it's a big ask for Newcestown, I think.
Definitely is a big ask, in fairness, but Newcestown are a team that always kind of relishes maybe the underdog tag, but we'll have to see how Newcestown do get on the Premier Senior grade. In the Intermediate A Hurling Championship, you have a West Cork derby between Bandon and Kilbrittain. These are the only 2 West Cork clubs in this grade. They'll be joined by Emo Kelly clubs, Ahada and Russell Rovers in the same group. Suppose Bandon and Kilbrittain, kind of different ends of the spectrum. Maybe Bandon reached the final of the Intermediate A Championship last year, losing to Ahabulloch by a point. Obviously, that was a tight game to call there. Kilbrittain are currently on a Munster run, so I don't think they'll care too much about the draws as of now. But they're after a Premier Junior win, they're after a Munster win. Who knows, in the next few weeks they could be after an All-Ireland win. They go into Group 1, obviously, against near rivals Bandon. It is a difficult group to call, and another West Cork derby to look forward to, this time in the other code.
Yeah, kind of. It's we've been fortunate enough, I suppose, from a Southern Star West Cork perspective, that we're getting these local derbies in the hurling championship, because we obviously don't have the same number of teams in the county hurling championships as we do in the county football championships. So to get Bandon and Kilbrittain in the same group at Intermediate A, we'll definitely take that. And you're 100% right too, Matthew. I'm not sure Kilbrittain will kind of care too much about the 2026 championship draw right now, because they're very much involved in this All-Ireland run. They've their All-Ireland semi-final coming up the weekend after this, taking on the Leinster champs, and touch wood, all goes well there, and you could have an All-Ireland final for Kilbrittain very early in the new year. So that's where their focus is right now. But at some stage next year, obviously their attention will turn to the county championship and that game against Bandon, and that'll be a great local derby in a sense, kind of to have these 2 teams go head to head. Like, you're right, Bandon were so close to getting out of the Intermediate A grade this year. Kind of, it was almost kind of taken out of their hands at one stage at the wait so long, wasn't it? Kind of 4 weeks after the county final was meant to be played, for various reasons it actually was played, and Ahabulloch had the momentum and they went up there. So that'll be a game to look forward to whenever it's played. But Bandon will know from this past season that they are good enough to get to the knockout stages of the Intermediate A Championship, and they'll believe that they're good enough to win it as well. So I think that'll be a really interesting game when it does roll around.
Definitely will be. And speaking of West Cork derbies, there's another one in the Premier Junior Hurling Championship in Group 3. You have Mayfield and St Finbarrs joining West Cork rivals Carbery Rangers and Barryroe in the same group. You would say that Argentine probably have the upper hand here, considering they reached the quarterfinals last year and they were competitive enough in the championship last season. Barryroe ended up in the relegation playoff, which they won against Milan. But Argentine were in a relegation playoff in 2024 as well. So these are the last two survivors as well. So it could be argued that it could this could be the game to avoid the relegation playoff. But think of it from a positive point of view for a sec. It could be the game to decide who goes into the knockout stages, with the West Cork rivalry and all that as well. And judging by what Kilbrittain did in this competition, would that give the confidence to the likes of Argentine and Barryroe to kick on?
It should do. I think Kilbrittain's kind of success, obviously winning the county, winning Munster, has to be a boost to to hurling in Carbery and the Carbery clubs. We've heard long enough that almost there's no hurling kind of west of the viaduct, that nonsense that's kind of spouted now and again. But I think we've had hurling teams obviously prove that hurling is okay. There's pockets of hurling in West Cork that are stronger than some other areas, but the likes of Kilbrittain winning a Munster title, Bandon getting to a county final, Newcestown doing what they do up at the top tier. There's really good hurlers and really good hurling teams in West Cork, and like you said there, Argentine and Barryroe in the same group. Let's be optimistic, Matthew. Let's say this will be the game to decide who gets through to the knockout stages. In an ideal world, we'll get Argentine and Barryroe both through to the knockout stages of the 2026 Premier Junior Hurling Championships. But both teams can, I think, and they should take a lot from what Kilbrittain have done, because Barryroe have put it up to Kilbrittain in this championship over the last couple of years. Argentine have had good games against Kilbrittain over the years. So there's never been really kind of too much to kind of choose between them. So I think it'll be we can use what Kilbrittain have done and use it as a kind of a shot in the arm for kind of Carbery hurling clubs. Kind of, not to say that they need belief, but I think it just shows, when you see a Carbery hurling club kind of holding aloft a Munster Cup, it shows what's possible, and for Argentine and Barryroe, why shouldn't they think next year will be our year? They've had close calls these last couple of seasons, but you need belief, you need targets, you need something to aim for. So why not? Why not try and touch the sun and kind of see what happens?
We'll have to see how they progress next season, but it should be a very interesting local derby there between the Timolee club and the Barryroe club next year. We'll take a quick break now, and after the break, we'll switch your attention to the inter-county season, which is fast approaching, with the interview with John Cleary.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So welcome back to the podcast, and in a while we'll be joined by John Cleary on the podcast. Of course, Kieran, you did talk to John for this week's episode, and I suppose it is probably a good time to chat to John, considering the National Football League is just around the corner in January with Cork's first game against Cavan. Of course, before that, the McGrath Cup begins as well for the Cork footballers. You look at next season, Kieran, and you look at the way other counties have progressed, the likes of Meath reaching the All-Ireland semi-finals, sides getting promoted and things like that. Should promotion be an obvious aim for the Cork footballers next year, considering the way they push Kerry in the Munster Championship? And is the McGrath Cup and in the league and all them competitions an aim maybe for John Cleary's side to kick on?
I think we're talking about the league, Matthew. Has to be a target for Cork. 2026 will be the 10th season that Cork are outside of Division 1, kind of since that relegation back in 2016. Like that's a decade ago now. Like that's 10 years where the Cork football team has been outside Division 1 of the National Football League, and it just seems it's kind of, you go back to when Cork were relegated, you would never have foreseen this, kind of, because Cork were, in 2016, not All-Ireland contenders, but they were one of the top counties. But there's been that fall since then, and you'd hope that the Cork are on an upward trajectory now. But then again, you look at the league draw for 2026, not been kind in a sense, more so the latter finish where Cork are away to Derry and away to Tyrone in two of their last three games. And you don't want to be chasing results then, if you're chasing results to get promotion, that's one thing, because you're obviously after a good start to the league. But if you're not after a good start to the league and you're chasing results to avoid a relegation clash, you don't want to be going to Derry and Tyrone looking for results. So I think the league will be really important for Cork. I think we're looking for this Cork team to have stepping stones in development, and I think the league is so important. Been thereabouts the last couple of years. Kind of promotion bids kind of start, they fade away, they come again. So hopefully next year can be the year. Like you said, McGrath Cup is straight after Christmas. I think January 6th, Cork's first game, then January 11th again. So it's kind of ideal preparation for what's to come in the league, and then we're going into the championship. So it was great to catch up with John Cleary. You know, he's a busy man this time of year, kind of putting all his plans in place for 2026. His mind is already there, you know, kind of plotting where's next for this Cork team, and he's quite optimistic. So when I caught up with John, I suppose I started out with what I like to call a bit of housekeeping, just to check what the panel looks like for the new year and who's in and who's out. Delighted now to be joined on the podcast by Cork football manager John Cleary. Thanks for coming on the podcast, John.
Yeah, no problem, Kieran. No problem.
I really appreciate it. I'm going to start off with some housekeeping first, because our listeners and our readers will be very keen to know who's in and who's out of the Cork football panel for 2026. So we know the likes of, obviously, Sean Powter is kind of stepped away. We've Stephen Sherlock kind of coming back in. What more can you reveal to us, some of the names who are kind of, who'll be involved and maybe who won't be involved in 2026?
Yeah, I suppose, look, Chris Kelly and Neil Arden were on a panel last year. They're going travelling. Brian Murphy, Carl Maguire, they were in our panel last year. They're not in it then this year going forward. And we haven't really formalised our panel. I think we have about 46 in training at the moment between main squad and development squad. So, you know, we've some of the under 20s from last year in, and we're working off a pretty big squad at the moment. We have some guys that are coming back from injuries. We have some guys that aren't back at all after the club season, notably the Bars lads there. So at the moment we haven't set a panel, but you know, young lads there like Dara Sheedy, Conor Daly, Tomas O'Mahony, Darren Newman, Paddy O'Driscoll, you know, Mark O'Sullivan, Richard O'Sullivan, West Cork guys there maybe that are in actually, you know, training with us at the moment, but we haven't finalised the panel. That's, you know, we will do that after Christmas, and we're anxious to have a look at as many players as we can in training there at the moment. We also have a development squad who will play a few games as well. So at the moment it's pretty fluid. And as I said, we have maybe 7 or 8 guys that are carrying injuries. We'd expect them to be back in the next few weeks, and the club season now is finished for all Cork clubs. So, you know, by the start of the year, we'll have everyone back in harness, you know.
I suppose from a West Cork point of view, John, let's say some of the elder statesmen, and going to be kind, call them that, the likes of Rory Dean. Can we see is Rory back involved? Is he committed to 2026?
Yeah, Rory's committed, yeah. Rory's committed for 2026, yeah. So, look, he hasn't had a lot of luck with injury there last year, and he's back in training. So, you know, hopefully that you know, that he'll step up to the plate, and that you know, he can avoid injury, and we're delighted to have him back in harness again for next year.
I mentioned Stephen Sherlock there at the outset, John, and I think his display against Dingle last weekend is very fresh in the mind from the Munster Club final. But how hopeful are you in the management that they can see Sherlock make an impact? Because, okay, I granted there's a big difference between club and inter-county, but with the new rules and how good Sherlock can be, is it a obviously big boost to have him back involved for 2026?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. You know, he's a class player. He had a great county championship, and you know, last Sunday probably topped it off. So you know, we're delighted that he's back in the fold, and you know, we haven't seen him at inter-county level under the new rules. So you know, we're just delighted to get back working with him, and that you know, he was with us before, and he did say he was taking a year out, and you know, when we had a chat there a few months ago, he was thrilled and determined to get back again. So, you know, start of the year now, we'll be delighted to get back working with Steve again, and hopefully that, you know, he will add a few extra scores every game, which he's been doing in the club. But as you said, it's a different situation, club and county, and I'm sure he'll be earmarked by oppositions. But we're delighted to have him back. Yeah.
Another talented forward who made headlines in the county championship was David Buckley, Newcestown. Is he someone you're kind of hopeful of, that he can take the form that he showed for Newcestown getting to the last 4 of the Premier Senior, that he can translate that to the county level and start knocking at the door for you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. As I said, he had a super county championship. You know, Dave was a great lad to train. Fantastic attitude, and we're delighted to have him on board there for 26 again. And as you said, hopefully he can bring his club form into the county setup. Sometimes it takes a bit longer for guys to translate one to the other, and it's a different ball game completely. So, but look, from what we saw in the county championship, he has all the attributes that hopefully he will make the step up.
I know we're chatting now, and it's kind of early to mid-December, but 2026 isn't too far away. And I'm just looking there, McGrath Cup, January 6th, January 11th. So you're kind of straight back into it. But how important do you think the McGrath Cup will be next year to have those games to prep before the league starts?
Yeah, look, I'm not so sure that we'll be taking it that seriously. We won it twice there a couple of years ago, and it was more important to us. And I think this year, it'll be more about looking at guys, if we can at all, giving guys games, because what we find there when the season starts and the season goes on, you can't actually get to look at players because the pressure is on, and you can't throw 2 or 3 of them in together and see will they sink or swim, because every game is a must-win game. Particularly in Division 2, it's dog eat dog. If you win a couple of games at the start, you're looking up hopefully to be in line for promotion. If you don't, then you're looking at the other side. So it's not the easiest division to blood, guys. And we feel there like the McGrath Cup is maybe the only opportunity you'll get during the year, because after the league, then it goes straight into championship. And, it's not fair maybe to throw guys in at the deep end, trying to blood them in championship or in big league games. So I think, this year we'll be looking, if we can at all, to blood guys there in the McGrath Cup and see how it goes,
Like you mentioned earlier on the conversation about a lot of the kind of young fellas who are been brought in. So can you kind of think it'll be more experimental Cork team we'll see in the McGrath Cup? So
it will. The only thing about it is that it clashes. The first game that we have clashes with the Sigerson Cup, and a lot of the younger guys there that we wanted to bring in and have a look at or whatever won't be available because they'll be playing with their colleges. So it's a case we just have to sit down and see who is available, and it's a very busy time of the year. We don't want to be overloading guys before they start the season at all. So, but like as I said, we will be using it as an experimental competition. But as I said, the Sigerson Cup has taken a bit away from us on that, and we'll just have to see who's available around that time.
Would you give the Bars lads a break now before bringing them into the setup?
Yeah, I suppose it's individual for everyone, but look, everyone needs a break. Even the guys there that finished, beaten in county finals or things like that, they all got their break. And then some guys would say, look, I want to get back in a bit sooner. And then other guys would say, look, I need an extra week or two. And, it's an individual decision. And we'd sit down and talk to them and see what's best for them and see how we can get the most out of them next year. Because again, it's a long year. And as I said, particularly the league there, 7 games in 9 weeks. We have the championship then starting 2 weeks later. And that goes week and week for the next 7 or 8 weeks. So it is a long season, and the last thing you want to do is fellas coming in not fresh at the start of it, because they'll run out of gas when you really want them then later on the season.
Like you said, once the season starts at all from the league, January 25th right through the championship, it's hot and heavy there for a couple of months. So how do you think the season that Cork had just gone, in terms of give a lot of fellas came in and kind of staked their claim that you'd hope that they'd kick on this year, that you can use 2025 as a platform to build, there was a good squad there, John, and kind of a lot of fellas came in and staked the claim.
Yeah, definitely. And, sometimes when guys come in at the start, there isn't the big pressure on them. Now there's maybe expectations there. But look, what I do know is that there's a good panel in Cork, there's good footballers, but, around the country, every other county is thinking the same way. And, some with new managers, some with new players and things like that coming in. So, and it's really only when you get into the cut and thrust of it, when we've tough league games now, away to Tyrone, away to Derry, away to Louth, and then we'll see maybe what guys are made of. So, as I said, we were very happy last year that fellas came in, stood up, and added to the panel, and we'd be hoping now again that this will be the same in the new season, that 1 or 2 other guys will put their hands up and stake a claim, because as far as we're concerned, it's an open book starting again. Whatever happened last year, is gone now, and we'll be looking at what's happening on the training field, what's happening, in maybe the McGrath Cup and things like that before we get going at the league, and that's the way we'll base and how we'll put the team together.
I mean, January 25th, home game against Cavan to kick off the league. This will be Cork's 10th year outside of Division 1. I know we've spoken about it before, John, the kind of, obviously there's a desire to get Cork back up to the top tier. That's still a huge objective, a huge target, to get Cork back into that top tier Division 1 for the development of the team and those kind of consistent games against the best teams in the county. So how much of a target is it for you next year to try and get that promotion push, just to kind of click this team on?
Sure, obviously, when you start off the season, it's a case of that has to be one of our targets. But where we're figuring, we kind of take it in blocks, really. We have the McGrath Cup. We'll look at that. We have 2 games in the league, and then we have a break, Cavan and Louth away. And, rather than looking at the end, we're looking at it game by game, maybe a bit block by block. After the first 2, we get a break, but then we have 3 in a row, which is fairly tough going, as we know from previous seasons. And then you'll see where actually you're figuring out going into the last couple of games whether you're in line for promotion or not. Of course, we'd like to get up. It's what we want to do. But all we're figuring now is take it game by game, and we'll see where that takes us. And hopefully that'll put us into a good position going into the last couple of games.
How important is a good start? So they said Cavan home, Louth away, Offaly away, Meath home. You kind of mentioned earlier 2 of the last 3 games are away to Derry and Tyrone, kind of testing trips up the north. So how important is it to get that fast start and get wins under the belt early? Because that kind of dictates the momentum and the narrative going into the middle and the back end of the league.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think, every team in Division 2 will be targeting a fast start, same as ourselves. If you get points under your belt, you can play with a bit more freedom, you can play with more confidence. And, when you're beaten in a couple of games, 2 years ago, we lost the first 3 games. And, but we still had to take it game by game. We went to Fermanagh that time and, just got out of jail above them for Fermanagh, and it kickstart the season. Last year we won the first game and probably left a game behind us and down that we should have won. And but that would have put us in a great position. But it's every game will be tough in it. Even if you get off to a good enough start, it's the next game, and every team there, Louth or Leinster champions, Meath, went to the All-Ireland semi-final. We know what Derry and Tyrone can bring. Offaly of Division 3 champions, Cavan, they came down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh and beat us 2 years ago. So every game is very, very tough. So we won't be looking ahead of ourselves at, what's the end outcome. All we'll do is see how we can get on game by game, and hopefully that will take us up the table.
And obviously next season we'll be second season with the new rules. We'll all be a year older, a year wiser. Kind of, you've had the off season to kind of reflect on the rules. How much of a benefit have they been to the game? Have you had a chance to kind of think, okay, we could still tweak this and that? I'm even thinking back to obviously the Bars and Dingle, kind of that late controversy, you want to call it, where Dingle got that free kind of pulled up and Gainey knocked it over. Is there areas that we can tweak here, John, or what's your thoughts on these rules now?
Yeah, well, I suppose really it's the first season with these rules, because halfway through the last season they changed. The goalie was out the field for the first 3 or 4 league games. We didn't have the pre-season, so basically these set of rules now, as they are only there since halfway through last season. So basically it was a case of trying to learn on the job and take it game by game. At least now this year we know exactly that there's going to be no change, there's going to be no tweaking, anything like that. And look, of course, I think it has made the game a much better spectacle. It's much more enjoyable to actually coach, and I know the lads are always saying, look, it's much more enjoyable to play. And so it's a case now, I think every team will be trying to get that little edge, where they can get ahead with these new rules, where they can have a little advantage until some other team comes in and does something else. So, as I said, things like that happened, last Sunday to the Bars. And I think thinking back to our Kerry game, we got caught, something kind of similar, fellas going up, contesting the ball, coming down, and next thing 50 metres, when there was no intention or anything like that. And I think in fairness to the GA, they had a look at that and changed that and tweaked with it. So I I think every team around the country now is looking up ways. Where can we get a yard here? Where can we get a bit of an advantage there? And we're the same. We're trying things in training. Some are working, some aren't working. And but I think, look, if I think you'll see a very good league and championship campaign this year. I think you'll see very good football, and I think it was good last year. But I think starting off, everyone on a level playing field with the same rules that are going to be there for the rest of the year, I think you'll see a very good league and championship. And we'd be hoping, like everyone else, to adapt to it. And to put our best foot forward, and to put, sometimes maybe you might be picking different personnel now than you were previously because of the rules. And but I think everyone's in the same boat, and look, we're really looking forward to it.
Do you think a two-pointer could come more into play this season?
Well, it possibly will, and maybe in the league, it's a thing that, you'll have very windy conditions. You might have 2 pointers in one half of the game, and you mightn't in the other half. But I think definitely it's no secret. Every team now is trying to edge out those 2 pointers. Like it's a huge. It would take 3 1-pointers to better it on the other side, and you could take a big chance in going for a goal, and it's still only 1 more point than the 2 pointers.
I have to ask you before I let you go, John. You've been really kind with your time. Obviously, you ratified for a 2-year term. Why did you want to stay on as Cork Senior Football Manager? You've given so much service to the county over the years. Kind of, what was the big draw for you to say, no, kind of, I still have the energy, the love, the passion, and I still have more to give to this? What was anything convinced you to stay on, or what was your
well, I suppose, look, yeah, to answer that, is that, look, when the season finished last year, my term was up, and I just sat back, and the county board came to me and asked me would I consider putting my name forward again. Then the players' delegation came and said the same, and then it was the case, the ball was in my court then at that stage, and then a lot of the backroom team were anxious to give it another go again. We felt we had made a lot of progress, and that it would be a shame, and particularly with regard to the backroom, that it took me a couple of years to build that up and to get these lads together. That probably would have maybe broken up, and so with that, I just took 4 or 5 weeks out, and as I said, they just made my mind up then when the backing was behind me, and the guys wanted to go again. That look, that I would have another go, and but it's not about me. It's definitely the guys. It's the back room there. Too numerous to mention. They do Trojan work, and I was happy then working with them, and as I said, working with the squad of players. And when they were anxious for me to go back, that kind of convinced me that I would have another go at it.
And you must feel as a management team, and you mentioned the backroom team there, that there is this kind of, you can envisage this Cork team making progress and taking that next step. Like, kind of, I presume one of the reasons you stayed on too is because, like, and you feel that there's more to come from this team and this group of players.
Yeah, look, I do know it's very competitive out there. Last year we were within a kick of a ball of beating Kerry, who went on to win the All-Ireland after. But there was other times then when, as I mentioned, down, or the results maybe left us down. And like, we feel if we can get that consistency and, just maybe avoid maybe the injuries we had there the last year or two in particular, that on our day we can be a match for anyone. But we do know if we don't keep our standards up, if we don't, really put our best foot forward, we can be beaten by anyone in Division 2 as well, or even in the Championship. We're drawn to play Limerick. Limerick had a great season last season, went to the Tailteann Cup final on their day. If we're not on the ball the likes of that day, we can be beaten on the other side as well. So it's a case of trying to get that consistency, and and as I said, like, the backroom team I think are excellent in what they do. Kevin Murray now has been added to it this year, which is he's a very excellent coach, another string to the bow. Kevin Walsh, as always, is excellent coach. And it's a case of, look, can we get the best out of these guys? And, if we can, I definitely think we can make progress. But look, I know around the country today, every other county is thinking the same, and everybody wants to make progress. There can only be one winner at the end of the day. And look, we hope, put our best foot forward. We can definitely make progress next year, you know.
And finally, John, obviously we're going to touch on it too. It's a higher pressure environment, when everyone chasing the same goal. But how much are you still enjoying it?
Look, there's certain amounts of it you enjoy. I love being out in the field with the lads, and some of it then is not so is not the glamorous side, and but definitely the enjoyment never changes from getting out into the field, the buzz of the big match day, dealing with guys that really want to be there, no excuses, which they never have. And they're trying their level best. And some days it works for them, other days it doesn't. And me, in conjunction with the coaching team, trying to get the best out of these guys. And when you do see them improving, and when you do get a big result, that's where the ultimate enjoyment is. And as I said, there's no better enjoyment than having a big championship victory or a big league victory, maybe up the country. And I think that's what drives us all on. That's what drives us to get to the next level. And that's what we're trying to do.
Oh, fantastic. Hopefully Cork can move to the next level next year. Thanks so much for your time, John, and have a great Christmas and best of luck in the new season.
No problem, Kieran. Cheers.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So it is that time of the week again where we look at what's in this Thursday's Southern Star Sports section, and what should our readers expect this week here?
Yeah, it's again like kind of broken record at this stage in terms of it's just busy. Like kind of West Cork Sport is a 12-month of the year operation at this stage. So it's another packed Southern Star Sport and on the way this Thursday. So first off, congratulations to Clonakilty Community College. They won the Simcox Cup title for the first time ever, beating Clonakilty Ballincollig. And it's just a good time for the Clonakilty school. They're through to the Carbery quarterfinals, topped their group there after winning all the games. Going to play high school Clonmel in early January. So we've all news from that. Almost a touch on what we were talking about earlier in the hurling draws, Matthew, about how Kilbrittain's win can be a boost for Carbery hurling clubs. And Tom Lyon's done a really fascinating piece on that, just how Carbery hurling can build on Kilbrittain's success. Also, the West Cork LGFA Awards were on recently, and we have a 2-page special from that. We also have an interview with Myra Barrett, the Bandascarty Camogie captain. Myra picked up a West Cork Sports Star Award recently, so it was a good chance to catch up with Bell's captain. Fantastic. It's also kind of convention season at the moment. The Carbery convention was on in Kilbrittain on Friday night, so a big report from that, a lot of pictures. The county convention was on last night, so Tom Lyons has a report from that. Turning to other sports at the moment, the Beamish Cup draw was made as well in the last week or so. So you can check out who's playing who in that. It's the FA Cup of the West Cork League. Fiona Everard, Darren McElhinney and Laura Nicholson will all be in European cross-country action this weekend. There's a big return for a well-known motorsport driver in West Cork, and I'm not going to say any more on that. Just check out Thursday's Southern Star to see who the Ballygurteen man who's making a return in 2026 is. Good story and big news there. So there's loads in there. On top of that, there was Team Ireland Olympic Sports Awards for Dominic Casey and Fintan McCarthy. So as you can gather, Matthew, kind of the sport isn't easing down at this time of the year. There's plenty there. So lots for readers to sink their teeth into on Thursday.
And as usual, it is packed. And if you are further afield or can't make it to the shops, you could subscribe to the Southern Star e-paper and get the Southern Star on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/subscribe, enter your details, and you get an exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next week. Until then, take care.